and now reading research on what strategies do or don't work in terms of activating the community.
And when you say reading, do you mean going to the traditional library?
No, internet.
Oh, the internet.
Completely. I mean, it's, you know, it is the way to access. People are putting on research because part of the thing is what the internet does is people do research and then you have to go to the library or your library has to get it for you, or, you know, it's not a book. It's not a bestseller. So what the internet has done is given me access to federal studies, local studies, even, you know, how people are using arts across the country and doing research projects, because in a nonprofit organization, research is incredibly expensive. You know, people want, so can you prove it? And we're like, we're barely getting enough in our budget to actually execute the work to the best of our ability with the research and the rehearsal that we do, much less put in a pre and a post and an ongoing assessment that expects more from the teachers and more from us. And then we're like, but should we be evaluating or assessing ourselves? So it's been useful, you know, in terms of the bullying, to really research, has there anything being done at this age group? And if not, why not? And the program itself was started because people said you couldn't ask student-centered, issue-based questions to early childhood students. And we went, oh, okay. And Karina Naumer, who founded the program, went, I'm going to do it anyways. And we've been groundbreaking ever since.
What about collaboration within the creative arts team with respect to computers themselves? I see you have a computer on your desk, which you seem to be a little attached to.
Oh, well, it's a double-edged sword. By nature of this particular company, we don't have, not everybody comes to our office. We have teaching artists who are out across the 5 boroughs, so we could have, depending on the time or place, we could have between 30 to 50 teaching artists. And they're responsible getting up in the morning and going out to the site and doing their work and then moving on to whatever work is. So how do we communicate with them? What's a central way of communication? We have mailboxes, that's very old school, but we internet. That's how we communicate. That also can be dangerous because there's an assumption that if I drop you an email, you're going to get it in time and you're going to read it. So, of course, please confirm that you got this email as part of my internet etiquette. People use texting and people use the phone. We also, on our internet, we have a series of networked access points for multiply shared information. And there might be an email going out that says, all right, the sign-off forms that you need, that every teaching artist needs to sign off to prove that they were there and not off, you know, watching movies instead, that piece of paper is there and it's been updated so everybody's using the same content. This article was written about this particular program. That's there. So there's a centralized location for that. My particular program has a centralized place on the network so that we can access from different computers the paperwork that we use when we are doing a training. So the support materials are there, or when we develop our own support materials that are not necessarily translatable across the programs because we're doing something age-specific and teacher-specific. We're now exploring as a company visibility through the internet. So we have a Facebook page, and we're getting that up and running because it's, 35 years, classic nonprofit. We've got these records, and there's an archivist working with us in Arizona, but they're all squirreled away. And we, once you file something and put it away, you instantly need it. So what we're trying to do is, coming up on our 35th anniversary in a year, use the Facebook page to reconnect with our alumni. And you're amazed to see how many people are still doing this kind of work, because even if you're not working with early childhood still, the training that we do prepares you to do a certain style of work, how you engage with people. And it'll be interesting to see where people are now.
You were recently in the United Arab Emirates on behalf of the Creative Arts team, where you blogged about your experience. Yeah. How did the ability to blog add to the drama of your mission?
Well, there was drama, and then there was drama, because I knew that I had to blog. As part of a company, we're looking at visibility, and we've been talking about what's a blog. how do we use the blog? And I don't only, I also blog about women's basketball. So I've been doing that for 3 or 4 years, and I've looked at other people's blogs and how they're used. And I understood that when I was going to blog, I was trying to capture what I was doing in the moment, because I also knew that I was not going to be able to reflect the same way on it 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. It's sort of like, oh, I'm going to go rewrite that high school paper that I know. So what it did do is it made me pay attention to the details. And I also consider myself a storyteller. The blog itself was a story, and I had to be, as an author, as a writer, aware of who my audience was. My boss was my audience, so she understands my work. My friends who know me, Helen, not Helen, the program director of the Early Learning Program, know my style. There might be strangers in the United Arab Emirates who don't know anything about the creative arts team. There might be people who come in with assumptions about what New York is and assumptions about what the UAE is. So when I was writing a narrative to try and connect with anybody who was coming in from I didn't know where, so that they didn't miss part 1 and part 2 and think, well, why bother? I couldn't say, so we're doing an interactive story about anti-bullying, because that meant nothing to somebody who didn't know our work. I used photographs to save myself sometimes when I was writing, because as a reader and as a writer, I know that online your visuals are quite different. Even writing about sports, I would learn from that. You break it up. If you have 700 words, you might have a smaller headline, smaller headline, smaller headline. So visually, I'm not thinking, oh my goodness, I have all this to read. So I understood that I had the freedom to go, I'm just going to put in 2 sentences. Or I'm going to put in a sentence and a couple photographs. Or instead of having to think, I'm going to write all about my trip around Al Ain, where we were in the UAE, I could say, we went to the hotel and show a picture, and we did this and show a picture. And so I was able to use the medium of visuals to supplement my own writing. So I didn't feel pressured to write an extensive narrative every time I was there. And I set that up, actually, before I went there. I sort of introduced people to my style. There were preps that I did before I actually hit the ground running, so people would get used to seeing that, yes, I was going to be reliable. I was going to put something up every day. I might put 3 or 4 entries every day, or just one to go, I'm really, really tired, but check out the photograph. And don't you want to know more about this? And I hope to write, that I was writing in a style that was engaging, that was telling the truth, but also being able to share my own experience as a human being in an alien culture, which was actually not as alien as I expected.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you taking time out to have this conversation.
My pleasure.